So it's not for kids.
Apple bottom jeans and the boots with the fur.
So Kenny, you're a really big fan of the song Bad Apple from the Toho video game franchise.
I think it's a good bop. I never played Toho or followed any of the content. I did play some Osu back in the day, and that song came up, and I was like, this is a good song.
Yeah, the song is like the most...
best thing to come out of Toho.
Well, yeah, probably. No offense to our Toho fans out there. For those who don't, should we explain what Toho Project is, or like?
No way. They can look it up.
It's just a series of video games, like that airplane game, 1941. It's kind of like Galaga on crack.
Shoot 'em ups.
They're called shoot 'em ups. I thought that was something different.
No, shoot 'em ups or shmup.
Well, but they created their own category, right? They're called bullet hells.
I mean, bullets hells are just shmups that are Dark Souls.
Yeah, the Dark Souls of shmups. I love that sentence right there.
This is why you come back to this podcast.
No, it's funny because Bad Apple is like, I don't know what the context was for the original Toho game, but it definitely shows up in like every rhythm game. You go to like any, if you know this song, then you go to like any modern arcade where it's like Japanese video games are getting imported from.
We need a definitive mind map of nerddoms and how they overlap. This is what I'm learning. Because like the people who are really into Toho Project overlap heavily with rhythm games, probably with like My Little Pony to a certain extent. But like they're like on the other side of the globe compared to like Marvel fans or even like Lord of the Rings. So like we need a mind map is what I'm hearing.
XKCD made a map once of like internet subcultures. You're saying it needs an update?
It needs Toho on there for sure. There's like a map of genres. Have you seen that? And it's like really good.
Map of genres for what? Music?
Yeah, there's like music genres and subgenres, and it's like a huge sprawling thing. It goes as deep as you want with like, genres that some would argue aren't even distinct from each other. And it has examples of bands and songs too that you can like play in the map, which is really, really cool. Tanner showed me this.
Is this like an interactive like website experience? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. That's pretty sick.
We need that for nerd stuff.
Yeah, it seems like the hardest thing about it would be collecting the database for it. It's like you're saying, like, we need all Board Game Geek users. I guess you could create a map of like 4chan and get an approximate knowledge of meme cultures. It would definitely have its own biases.
Yeah, maybe do an aggregate. Like, let's bring in like Tumblr and Reddit too. Just leave YouTube out of it.
Have you ever been like bewildered by YouTube comments?
Yes, that's kind of what I was alluding. YouTube comments is like such a weird place.
There's subcultures on YouTube where the comments section is like wholesome and funny. But you venture outside of that because you're in like the YouTube Shorts pit, and then you look at the comments because you're just like confused about a short you just saw, and it's like the most like dog shit takes on anything you've ever seen. Like
it's like the downvoted comments on a Reddit thread.
Yeah.
But
or like
written with like 12-year-old grammar.
Yeah, same idea, right? But with like angry, Facebook grandmas type energy sometimes. It's wild.
But none of this is related to our nerddom. We're talking about board games.
Yeah, get out of here with that Toho stuff. We don't talk about Toho on this podcast. We talk about Toho. Board games.
Should we explain board games? I think they know. Welcome to Shelf Stable, a podcast celebrating the latest and greatest in Toho Project. I'm your host, Kenny Katayama.
And I'm your other host, Tom Bowers. Today, our featured topic is Toho board games. I'm kidding. We're talking about Toy Factor. But before we talk about that, let's talk about some of the things that we've just been playing recently, because it's our podcast. We can do what we want.
Tom, recently I got to play hundreds of Tohos. Oh, whoops. Wait, hold on. Let me check. No. Oh, that's wrong. I got to play hundreds of horses from 2015. Designer Forrest-Pruzan Creative. I'm guessing that's some kind of collective, or Ravensburger not wanting to credit their artists. And the publisher's Ravensburger. Yeah, we made it through that intro to that game. We did it. We got through those sentences. Hundreds of horses. What is there to say about this game? You're gonna, you with your snooty thumbs over there listening to this on your phone, you're gonna go to bgg.com. You're gonna look up hundreds of horses, and then you're gonna go, kids game, stupid toy kids game that nobody cares about. Why are they giving a shit? Why are they talking about this horse game? I don't like horses because I'm a board gamer. Well, I ask you to reconsider.
Hold on a second, Kenny. You got to pause for 1 second. Whoa. This is breaking news. I'm sorry. www.forrest-pruzan.com now redirects to Prospero Hall.
Oh.
According to the blurb and the Board Game Geek description of the designer, they also did like Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle, Ramen Fury. Are those now also credited as Prospero Hall?
I believe so. I believe they're now credited as Prospero Hall, at least the Harry Potter one. It's interesting because the redesign of Harry Potter Hogwarts, the Avatar one, is attributed to Patrick Marino, who I think was part of Prospero Hall. Okay. So it's like, I don't know, there's all kinds of stuff going on with Prospero Hall. It's a ever-flowing amoeba of designers.
Basically, the lesson that we've learned from Prospero Hall is work as a team is great, but credit yourselves individually.
Yeah. Hundreds of horses. I forget what I said about my preferences as far as horses. I'm generally indifferent.
You're not a horse girl, is what you're saying.
I'm not a horse girl, but I'm not like an anti-horse girl either. You're going to put 4 horses out, and then you're going to draw a card, and the draw is like, which one of these horses would rob a bank? Or it'll have a story. Like the card will say like, Sadie's lush mane was the talk of the town until one day Sadie ate a rotten apple. And then all of a sudden she started to have overflowing amounts of eczema. And then everybody secretly decides which one of the horses in front of you is Sadie or which one robs a bank. That's it. That's the whole game. I mean, it's kind of a Dixit-styled game, and you might be thinking, like, I'm still not convinced, Kenny. Why are you telling me about this kid's party game? I guess you just have to play it.
This sounds like a wicked upgrade to Cards Against Humanity.
Oh, for sure. But, like, I would even say the feel is different from some of the other judge/vote games.
Really?
So here's what I think Hundreds of Horses has going for it. It's so absurd, despite not really trying to be, that it almost feels like you're doing like a parody game without it being unfun, if that makes sense. It's kind of like the same experience as like going to see The Room or something. And I'm not saying that because it's so bad it's good. Like, it's not bad, just to be clear. But there's sort of that vibe to it where it's like it's not being taken seriously. Just the idea that you have like these blurbs about what these horses' characteristics are, and the only thing you have to go off of is this tiny picture of the horse. And usually the pictures of the horses are like kind of silly to begin with. There's just this vibe to it where like none of us were taking it very seriously, and that's the point. The other thing it has for it is it's blessedly short. I feel like a lot of these party games, they either have an indeterminate length or the recommended length in them is like, you're going to play this for an hour. This game is 20 minutes long.
And it just is like, it's done.
Yeah, and then it's done. And it doesn't feel like you were shorted. So I think those are things that are a little understated about it. If you're just talking about the game in its incarnation, like, it's just a fun kind of like silly horse game. But the vibe it gives and the length really go a long ways to make this elevated over some of those other games, in my opinion. I'm excited to play this with you, Tom. If there was only one criticism on my end, it's a 3 to 4 player count.
Right. Which I saw, it seems like it's easily modified into higher player counts.
Yeah, there's like rules for, and there's people who have made custom versions of this game so that you can play it at 8 players. And so that's going to be my goal actually today. We're going to be playing games today. I'm going to try to see if we can play an 8-player game of this. I think all you need is poker chips. I need to be very clear about which horses are horses 5 through 8. Other than that, the game plays exactly the same. I'm looking forward to playing it again. Do I think it deserves awards? Do I think it's game breaking? Probably not, but it was a hoot. All right, that was Hundreds of Horses.
Looking forward to having 100 horses in my stable tonight because I am going to be talking about Nyakuza. I couldn't figure out a transition. Nyakuza, also known as Orongo, from 2014, is designed by Reiner Knizia and published in furry form by Cool Mini or Not, known as CMON. The original version, the Orongo version, is published by Ravensburger. Nyakuza is a auction game with a fixed economy, and there's an extra layer of this is sort of like pick wherever you want to go kind of thing that Knizia does in games like Through the Desert or Cascadero. So it's an amalgamation of like the auction game and the network building, seizing the tiles from your opponent's style of game. Yeah. And I feel like it really does manage to hit on both axes and do it like, pretty well overall. I found myself enjoying this one quite a bit. I think it I was going to originally say it's a C tier for sure, but I'm actually more confident that this is like B tier. I could see repeat plays either bringing it down or up. It's really hard to say.
Should we call them like C Knizia and B Knizias?
Yeah, a Reiner S. Knizia game, like Samurai, for example.
Knizia.
The Knizia titles. Yeah, this one's a Benizia. It's not to say it's beneath ya to play this game, Kenny. This one's interesting because the redesign, I think, is a welcome adaptation. When you look at Orongo, if Orongo itself was from 2014, I'm not entirely sure if that's right, but it looks older when you look at the Orongo version. Because it has a vibe that just feels sort of like out of place. Like, what even is this?
Yeah, it feels old.
I don't think Nyakuza is like the theme that I would have preferred for this. Although the idea of like it being Yakuza gangs opening up, money laundering shops or whatever, sushi shops, I guess, makes sense. And then softening it from being about actual Yakuza, which are real problems, as I understand it, into furries is like another decision where it all like makes sense, but I'm like, I'm not sure that I'm in love with the theme.
If you were head of CMON, you probably wouldn't have done that.
To be fair to them, I'm not really sure what I would have done to bring a new theme.
Here's my pitch. And so I kind of already gave my takes. If you want to listen back, I think it was episode 35 with Dan. I think this could have just been fishing and then selling the food at sushi stalls.
Right.
But they're Yakuza, and like the Yakuza part has like literally no contribution to the game.
Right. And that's something I was also going to say about the furry art. I'm calling it furry art because it's anthro animals, but it isn't like furry art. Like it's clearly not a furry artist, I don't think. Or at least it doesn't seem like they're actually trying to appeal to furries. Real furries.
You don't need to clarify. I mean, people know what we mean at this point.
So yeah, what I'm getting at though is that like it's like, why make it anthro animals? I wonder what the market testing looks like. We need to get Nick Bentley back on and start asking him about this because he worked in the industry. Maybe he could uncover the secrets of this, because to me it feels like the art direction would fail to appeal both to furries and to normies, because normies are going to look at it and be like, that's furry shit. And then furries are going to look at it and be like, it's not furry enough. Like, it's not yiffable.
I think it's flipped, right? I think it's very much just like looking at the market and seeing what's popular. We did the market analysis. The three things people want are gangsters, Japan, furries. And then they were just like, put it all in, boss. Here we go.
Yeah, there's like a market testing company out there that all these publishers rely on, but like the guy in charge of the market testing is like has a huge bias because he's really into the furry community, and so he's like pulling the strings as far as he can, but he like, he can't get them to commit all the way to making like really sexy furries. So they always have to be like normie adjacent.
Not sexy
furries.
Enough. What game has the sexiest furries?
Dude, that should be bonus content. Is like a furry tier list.
Oh wait, actually, holy moly, we gotta do this furry tier list.
Yeah.
Okay.
But would we be judging it based on the furry factor?
We'll leave it up to our patrons. Do you want us to judge the games based on the game quality or how attractive we find the furries?
How about this? We'll do two simultaneous.
A weighted scale.
You'll be the person who's judging it based on the quality of the game and the art, and I'll be the person who's judging it on its yiffability.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay.
that's on brand.
Gotcha. Perfect. We'll do it.
So we said it was a Knizia, and then we just talked about furries for a good 10 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, this is we talked about Medici at this point. We've talked about what other auction games, modern art, et cetera, et cetera.
That's it. There aren't really very many auction games in the board gaming sphere. That's what I've noticed.
So I was gonna say I feel like I want to rank Nyakuza Orango slightly below modern art, but I could almost see preferring to play this over modern art.
I'm going to say something wild. I think this Knizia guy, he might be onto something with these auctions. I think he should make maybe another auction game or something.
Yeah, I think people need to give up. Oh, when are we going to get a trick-taking auction game? That's what I want to know. Knizia can do it. I believe in him.
I mean, I guess technically Cat Blues, which we talked about on the cast, is kind of a trick-taking auction game.
Also, notably, another furry reprint of Knizia's.
Yeah.
So, what's going on?
Oh, yeah, no. Knizia is, typecast into anthro animals at this point.
It starts to make you wonder if it's, his direction.
What did we play? What did we play recently at IHOP? Rainbow. We played Rainbow, New Game Alert. That's a auction shedding game.
Yeah, I guess there's an auction factor to it.
Yeah, there's some of that going.
What if it's almost like For Sale, where there's an auction in the first round and then there's trick taking in the second round?
Yeah, I mean, For Sale's kind of like that.
Fuck, it's always been For Sale.
That was Nyakuza, also known as Orango, 2014. Tom, I got to play one that you're very mid on, but I love this game. Hansa Teutonica from 2009. We've talked about Hansa Teutonica before, very early on, revisiting it because we had somebody in the group that really wanted to try it out. Hansa Teutonica continues to be in a class of its own. I think Andreas Steding was really onto something with this because it feels like it's been around forever, even though it came out in 2009, which is it's old, but it's not from the 90s is what I'm saying. It has that classic feel, it's
classic
Princess of Florence, Tigris and Euphrates kind of vibe to it. It also really doesn't have a lot of comparators. Every time I try to describe Hansa, the only thing I come to is it's got the reveal stuff from Terra Mystica / Scythe. And then it has kind of you mooch off of others and you're not really being directly mean, but you're kind of taking advantage of each other that you see in Brass. But again, I don't think this game is anything like Brass. It's more of a vibe-based thing. Really, Hansa Teutonica is its own thing. You put cubes on a board, and when people put cubes in places that you want to go, you have to basically push them out. There's always this game of am I going to try to prioritize what I'm doing, or am I just going to be obnoxious so I get more value out of it? Because they have to pay more and I get a penny from it. This particular game of Hansa, two things happened. One, I think that folks were a little too hyper-focused on upping their actions and all the plates were up for grabs. And I was like, yum, 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 yum. I'm going to get all the plates. The plates are basically one-time bonuses. The other thing is that even though people were focused on upping their stats and stuff, I think I said actions. I should have said stats. They weren't going to the action upper. In my opinion, you should always at least get to 3 actions as soon as possible, even if everybody's contesting the area. I'm not one of the subscribers that's actions is all, because there are a lot of things you can do in Hansa that are about equivalent to getting an additional action. If you only get 1 additional action, you're probably not too in a bad place. I do think you need to get that 3rd action as soon as possible, though. And so I got my 3rd action as soon as possible. I was able to do 3 actions a turn instead of 2. And then everybody else kind of just sat and camped in the action area and didn't get their 3rd action. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm just going to keep going here. And I got my 4th action really quickly. And then I put one of my babies into the action spot for scoring. And players either didn't get their additional action for a very long time or started to scramble to get more actions and gave me a bunch of points. And from there, I think the game was kind of over. So on one end, I felt a little bad because I definitely like dominated the game. But I'm also hesitant because I know a few folks in that group, they really like to like figure out the game as they go. They don't want to get recommendations as far as how to play. And one person was learning for the first time too. So I didn't want to like be like, oh, y'all should really go there and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But it did kind of like snowball. Between the plates and the actions, there was like a really big margin in terms of scores. That being said, it seemed like everybody really enjoyed the game. And once they realized that I was like shooting ahead, it was more of a competition for second place. So ultimately, it didn't result in a negative experience. The nice thing with Hansa is even if somebody's dominating, it's not like they're ruining your plans. It's just they're shooting ahead. It's very much a game of like getting bennies. Fun times, good times all around. Hansa, I keep being afraid that it's going to become samey, but each time I play it, it's very different. Like the board states are different despite it being a nearly deterministic game. So that's impressive in and of itself.
I think I remember liking it all right, but every time I think about playing this again, I have made it more brown and dull in my mind than I think it actually is. Like, I think I have like some sort of like my brain just like thinks in color type thing going on this particular thing. And it's just like because of the box art, I'm like, oh, that game is like whatever, even though it probably really doesn't actually feel that way. Because I don't remember hating it.
There is definitely a browning to this game.
Yeah, And I also think
it has a sort of half-life where the more you stay away from it, the more it becomes brown in your brain, kind of like what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on. It's like, I really ought to just revisit it because it's like, I couldn't really even tell you what I did or what it really felt like to do it last time I played it. I would be willing to do it again. I just wasn't in the mood at the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Not a lot of daddy play here. As a reminder, Hansa has daddies and babies. Daddies are harder to push than babies. There was an iconic sentence that was said at some point. Can a daddy push another daddy? The answer was, daddies are no stronger at pushing other daddies than babies, or something like it. We got really convoluted with some of the terminology at some point. Holly went all dad strategy, got her daddies out, but then she started spending them. Yeah, she was dad maxing, but then she started spending a lot of them. And everyone else kind of like steered away from dads. So it was very much a baby main kind of game. So again, just speaking to kind of the different board states and how things change, I thought that was interesting. That was Hansa Teutonica from 2009.
It's brown. Speaking of brown, you know what else is brown? Dreidels. And that's what we played with in No Limit Texas Dreidel from 2007. Designed by Jennie, Rivlin, and Webb Roberts. Published by ModernTribe. This may be the only thing they've ever published. I didn't really look. We talked about this in the Wildest Games We Know episode. You brought it up. I looked it up as soon as I heard about it. It was available on eBay for a little over $20. So I expensed our corporate account. Thank you, #patrons, for your support.
Patrons immediately rescinds their support. They're like, this is what our money's going to.
People cancel their subscriptions right now. This was interesting, to say the least. I don't know if there was a manufacturing problem or if the person who is reselling this maybe at some point had like 2 copies of the game and they mixed the components up. But as I understand it, I received the deluxe edition, which should have 2 small dreidels for every player, aka 16 small dreidels, and at least 3 large dreidels to make up the community pile.
We don't need to go into too much of the details, but yeah, it did have like a weird number of...
Yeah, I had like 12 large dreidels and 12 small dreidels, so I really don't know what is going on. But we played it 6-player anyway, since that's all the pieces I had to support it. It was about as stupid as it probably sounds, but like it also works, if that makes sense. I don't think there's a lot of like betting and bluffing, and there's not the same sort of like calculation of risk and percentage outs and stuff like that you would get in actual Texas Hold'em. And really it's just a matter of the fact that it's a fucking dreidel. It has 4 sides. Like,
yeah, I was a little disappointed, honestly.
Right. There's no straights like you would maybe suspect. Everything is basically just like you either paired, 2 paired, full house.
What I had originally like interpreted as like a cool, fun twist on Texas Hold'em was actually just a reduced version that honestly felt like it was advertised as a way to play a gambling game for like Jewish families that didn't feel comfortable with gambling games or something like that. To me, there was no effort to make it its own game. I don't know what I was expecting, but it just felt like, when they make like a Christian version of Munchkin or something like that. It felt like that. And that was not at all what I was expecting going into it, I guess.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm like, I don't know what the Jewish rules are for gambling or gambling games.
You only roll 1 dreidel, but depending on which symbol comes up, there's different actions that are taken with the pot.
Yeah, which notably the rules for that are actually included in this.
Yeah. So there is a game. I just wish that had somehow been merged or incorporated, or at a minimum that something was done with the dreidels and their properties to make it different than just I drew a card and that card could be one of 4 symbols.
Right. Texas Hold'em, where all the cards have the same rank, but the suits are the only thing in play.
Yeah.
Basically. It's interesting, I guess, because like the original dreidel game, if you can really even call it that, is like, no offense, I guess, right? But it's like, it's practically like LCR, if you've ever played that.
Right.
Which I had no idea, frankly, before reading the rules to this. So I've still not actually played an actual game. Is the game itself called dreidel, or is that just the
I don't know that it has a name, or if it does, I've never heard it.
We're clearly not qualified because like neither of us are Jewish. I don't think we were playing with any Jewish people either.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to get their take on it. If anyone, can tell us, was this a family tradition for you when it came out? You were like super hype that you could get an amalgamation of dreidel and Texas Hold'em. I don't know. I basically the gist was like I was mildly disappointed, but you said something interesting, which is that you'd rather play this than Texas Hold'em for real.
Did I say that?
I thought you said that. Or did you say you'd rather play it than the game?
No, I said I'd rather try. I want to try this again next time that we would play Texas Hold'em. I want to try it again with a larger group and with like poker chips.
Gotcha. Yeah, because we tried to sort of recreate the tradition of using chocolate by using peanut M&Ms, because that's what the game store was selling.
Yeah, they didn't have chocolate coins, but it's not. I wasn't saying I prefer it to Texas Hold'em. I was just saying I want to play it again the next time we would play poker.
Okay.
I don't think I compared it to the Gang. I think the Gang is strictly a better game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whew. He's not completely cooked,
want to stress you out.
Listeners. Yeah, it's a fascinating artifact. I don't know how long I'm going to end up holding onto it. The one thing that's kind of nice is it has like a shitload of cups that you could use for holding pieces for other games.
Yeah, or drinking milk.
Or for drinking milk.
That was No Limit Texas Dreidel.
100 games to play before you die.
All right, this is the part of the podcast where we talk about the 100 games that you need to play before you yourself die or turn 100, whichever comes first.
Or become a Toho fan.
Whichever of those 3 things happens. Game number 36 is Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig from 2018. This is designed by Matthew O'Malley, Ben Rosset, and published by Stonemaier Games. Kenny, why is this on the list?
I think we are in the minority in championing this game.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I think the critical reception to this game generally is it is mid. And
really?
our group really likes it. There's a strong disagree here. So I'll just preface that. I think this game has a lot more going for it than people give it credit. Let's start with the ones that are most salient to it being on the list. One, it kind of allows us to sneak in 2 games into one spot because this is a mashup game. This is Between Two Cities combined with Castles of Mad King Ludwig. I will say it is much more similar to Between Two Cities than it is to Mad King Ludwig. But I will also say that The most interesting parts of Mad King Ludwig are thematically the weird castles that you can make and also how you combine and score. Those things are present, and the other weird stuff about the bidding and how you position the tiles, that stuff is either represented in other places in the list or is not interesting. Going back to this, I think that's the first thing. It kind of takes up 2 slots. Second, I think this is an incredibly good game in terms of how much you get out of it and how much it scales. A lot of people talk about like Seven Wonders and games like that. Like, this is a great alternative to Seven Wonders. It fits in a different space, right? I don't really feel like this is a drafting game, despite it being a drafting game. It's more of a tile placement game. But it fits in that space of playing really great at a lot of different player counts. While it retains the playability at a 7-player level, it also scales well at like a 3-player game too. So that's something that it has really going for it. And part of that is because of its scoring system. So this is part of a very small category of games where scoring is not dependent on a singular individual. In this game, for example, your score is the lower of the 2 scores, and you share that score with your neighbors. So you're actually cooperating with your neighbors on building 2 castles, one on your left, one on your right. And those scores are going to be shared. And so you can't just focus on one because your lowest of the 2 scores is going to be your final one. So you kind of have to contribute to both equally, and you have to work like legitimately as a team. It's not like it's not a semi co-op. You're literally in cooperation with your neighbors. I think that's really unique and kind of something I find interesting. It's not the only game to do this, but I think it's the one that does it in the most interesting way. I've rambled on enough here. Tom, what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, I'm sorry because maybe I just missed it, but what niche does this serve for the list? Because I understand the list is trying to spread across the diasporas of board gaming. Yeah. So what do you think this does that isn't already covered by something like Seven Wonders, or is Seven Wonders not on your list?
Yeah, this is not the drafting slot, even though there's drafting. So this is the tile laying, score a bunch of points via how you address all the different ways of scoring via tiles. And then it's also this kind of like unconventional, you don't have a direct score associated to your name. The other game that comes to mind for this is like New Angeles. New Angeles has kind of an interesting way of scoring too. I don't put it in the same category as a game like Dead of Winter, because even though it is semi-co-op, it's a completely different kind of semi-co-op, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, I'm going to sort of debate you live on actually having this in the list in a way. I actually kind of think that this game ends up being covered by other entries.
Okay.
But it's hard to say because I see sort of what this is replacing, which is Suburbia. But I'm not sure if there's any other true Suburbia-like game. It's just that, like, this is tile placement, yes, but I feel like there's a lot of slightly more complex games that do the tile adjacency scoring bonus.
We've talked about Carcassonne in the past.
Yeah.
I feel like these are distinct. In my mind, they're very different flavors of it that need to be experienced independently. This is more of a modern take on it.
It's like the interlocking elements that build on each other that makes it different, you would say.
Yeah, I think the game that could better replace this potentially is Cascadia. The problem with Cascadia is that it's not shelf stable, or at least it wasn't shelf stable when we made the list. On top of that, then you're losing this other aspect that you can sneak in, which is this like alternative scoring system.
Right.
So that's the reasoning behind it. It's one of those ones where like I see the challenge and I'd be willing to wiggle it out if there's really a game that's more salient that needs to make its way on the list kind of thing.
At the same time, like I also really do like this game quite a bit. I think the best things about it are kind of what you said, which is like it supports like a massive player count while playing really quickly, while still being like thinky, kind of puzzly, and unique with the semi-cooperative scoring. I like this game quite a bit. I'm kind of surprised, I guess, that it's not... This should be ranked higher than Quacks, in my honest opinion. If you're out here thinking like, oh, Quacks is like so sick, Castles of Mad King Ludwig does like everything that Quacks does, but better.
They're different games.
They are very different, but it's like it plays quickly and turns go fast, and like there's even a little bit of like sort of variable reward where you're like, you'll see a tile and you'll make a pick later and you'll be like, this will really pay off if that tile I saw earlier comes back around. And then when it comes back around, you're like, Pog, yes, we did it, you know? So this game's great. I do think people should play it. So I don't know. I don't think it should necessarily be removed from the list. It's an interesting entry because I feel like it has the least unique things going on for it, but I feel like it distills a lot of great mechanics into one solid box.
Agreed. Between Two Castles, 2018.
Okay, Kenny, enough of that bullshit. We're not stuck between two castles. I don't even know who Mad King Ludwig is. I never met the guy. I didn't.
He's a streamer. He's on Twitch.
All right. Well, you know, there's a bigger problem going on in the world of board gaming besides every Reiner Knizia title being reprinted with furries, and that is toy factor. So let's get into the real meat and potatoes of this podcast, the part of the episode that people tune in week after week to really hear us yap about. And let's talk about it. Toy factor. What does that even mean?
Yeah, what does toy factor mean?
This is my interpretation. I know Rich, one of our dedicated listeners, he claimed to have messaged us about a specific definition. Do you know where that is?
Yeah, sorry, Tom. Rich felt I was better equipped. I was better equipped to handle the conversation.
That's fair.
It's funny, like Rich will send me like the thinky stuff, and then we'll send you like the meme stuff. What does that say about? What does that say about us, Tom?
He's sending you the good takes, and he's sending me the unhinged takes, but they're also good.
Well, yeah, thank you, Rich. I think this is a good topic. I didn't grow up playing with toys. My parents, they believe strictly in education.
Right.
They said toys are for chumps. Read your math book if you want entertainment.
Yeah. They were like, read Kierkegaard and you'll understand where happiness really comes from.
Exactly.
Kenny, you don't need Bionicle.
That's why I'm overcompensating as an adult, now having gotten my independence by playing nonstop board games to a point where it's ruining all my relationships. So I really need your help with this one, Tom. What is a toy?
Okay.
What is toy?
What is toy? I mean, to me, toy factor can basically mean like anything that isn't made of card or cardboard, seemingly.
Interesting. So that's your interpretation. For me, toy factor is more about the way we engage with it. Because there's like thinky parts of a game, and then there's, ooh, that's fun parts of a game. And sometimes even something that is just paper or cardboard can have toy factor if it's executed correctly.
I was actually thinking about this exact thing with regards to Jungle Speed.
Yeah.
So you want to hear my take?
Yeah.
I think when people hear toy factor, I noticed there was like a thread on Board Game Geek that had gone off not that long ago called Toy Factor. Are you a fan? And I don't know what the original poster was saying, but a lot of people basically chiming in saying like, it's a factor, but I'm going to play a good game before I play a toy game. I think people have this sort of misconception that like either your game is a toy or it's a game. And then I was thinking of Jungle Speed in my own personal response to this, which Jungle Speed is a pretty light party game, but it has this rubbery plastic totem that is placed in the center and players need to grab it. That totem could very easily have just been another card that demarcated the zone in which players need to slap down their hand as fast as possible, and the player whose hand is on the bottom would win. Like there's no true need for the little Jungle Speed totem.
Oh, for sure.
But absent the totem, I think the game would be given a huge disservice. I think that it has more weight on the appreciation and fun factor.
If you think about like a game like Slamwich or even Taco Goat Cheese Vegetarian Anchovy Pizza.
Yeah.
I mean, that game has a little bit of its own thing that makes it interesting and fun. But the thing that it suffers from is there's not that kind of like joy with interacting with this butt plug in the center of the table, you know?
Right. The joy of a butt plug in the center of the table.
As we know, yeah. It's really about the butt plug, is what I always say.
It's always about the butt plug with you.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if there's two different approaches to making board games these days, which is like, do you design the toy or toy element first and build the game around the idea of how the toy will work? Or do you design a game and then you realize that certain components would be better served as, say, like mech miniatures a la Scythe?
Gotcha.
Right? There's nothing stopping the mech minis in Scythe from being fucking like cardboard circles.
Shits, yeah. So, by the way, GMT, Scythe, when are you doing your edition of Scythe? Because that would be dope.
Yeah.
Here's my thing. I don't think the approach matters, whether it's one versus the other that comes first, as long as the gameplay part is not phoned in, if that makes sense. If you come up with a really fun gimmick, and this goes for mechanisms too, and then you have a really good game to back it up, that's totally fine. Similarly, if you have a solid game and then you decide that you want to spiff it up with these deluxe, more interesting components, that's totally fine too. What I don't like is when people make a very generic game that feels like an afterthought to sell something. A really good example of this is like an Age Contrived. An Age Contrived's rule set is garbage, but it has these like spring-loaded metal plates that these dice fall into that aren't really dice, that you then flick out and stuff, and it's like completely unnecessary. It has no factor on the game. It's not a dexterity game, mind you. It's literally just like an extra toy that's in there. That's when I have a problem with it. If the game can't ride on its own gameplay without that factor, what am I saying? I'm saying like toy factor is a great way to enhance a game. It shouldn't be the reason that you play a game, in my opinion. And that goes for anything, even dexterity games and things like that.
Well, I think there's a degree to which it's sort of like it's self-fulfilling or self-unfulfilling.
Yeah.
Where it's like if the game sucks balls, but like there's an epic toy in the center of it, it's just like the toy will just end up being like used as a toy and the game will be discarded. Yeah. I think of Throw Burrito because my kids had a copy of this. I didn't buy it. I just want that on the record.
It was definitely my kids.
Eventually the burritos just ended up like wherever because those are what got played with. Like the game, I don't think anyone ever played it more than like once.
Yeah.
Sorry to my throw burrito heads out there for that hot take, but
yeah.
Counter example would be like Raw by Reiner Knizia.
Yeah, the 25th century
Raw
one.
Totem is a massive toy. It doesn't need to exist the way it does, but it's so sick to like slam a big ass fucking wooden, I'm gonna call it a dildo because that's what you called the other thing. Oh, you called the other thing a butt plug. Is the Raw Totem a dildo or a butt plug?
Well, I mean, they're usually interchangeable, right? So, I'll be the first to joke about these things, but I'm kind of showing my lack of knowledge. Even if one is designed for one purpose, it could still be used for the other, right?
I'd say in a lot of circumstances, yes. Yeah.
A butt plug is used with a different purpose, but they are ergonomically similar, right? I don't know. Phone in.
Yeah. Email Kenny with the difference and explain it in graphic detail.
Why me?
I was just thinking, actually, this might be the perfect thing to talk about. Well, hold on, let me finish the thought with Raw, right? Like, Raw is enhanced heavily by the wooden totem that you get to slam on the table and you invoke Raw.
Agreed.
With. But this does lead me to a different take altogether in general, which is that can all toys be boiled down to like one of two things? Just like the sort of like the hamburger hot dog arguments or whatever? Or
what?
You know how like people try to categorize all food as one of two base foods or one of a small number of base foods? Like
kicker and flying?
Yeah. Same idea, like, but everything's like a soup or a salad or a steak.
Oh, no. Can we not go into the cube rule on the podcast?
Yeah. But you do that with toys. So it's like every toy is either what, like a Lego or a butt plug. Like, you know what I mean?
Are they going to put that on your gravestone, Tom?
Here lies Tom Bowers, quote, "Every toy is either a Lego or a butt plug." I'm always saying this.
You're going to have to develop that thought because I'm not really tracking. Like,
well, I can't on the spot come up with like what the basic categories need to be.
You don't have to come up with a category, but what is the point you're trying to make? Like, are you saying that every toy that's in a board game serves either one of two purposes? Is that what you're saying?
Sort of, like, yeah, I wonder if it could be distilled to something like that.
I don't think so. I think that the toys have different intentionalities behind them. I mean, I think you could make a distinction between games that the toy is the main attraction. And when I think of that, I think of like dexterity games where the game is very much built around that, or even something like Dark Tower. Dark Tower is not a dexterity game, but a lot of the game is built around the toy aspect of it. Those games have toys as a focus. And then there's another category, which is games that are enhanced by their toyetic nature. So adding in minis or having this little mechanism that uses magnets or something like that. Those are things that enhance the game, but I'd say the conceit of the game is not those things themselves, if that makes sense. But even within those categories, there's very different versions of it. I don't know that you can necessarily reduce it down to two types of toys other than those larger categories.
Yeah, that's fair. One day I'll figure this out and I'll be back on the podcast and I'll be like, I've got it, you know? But we'll have to wait for that.
Toy Factor Part 2, Electric Boogaloo.
I'm gonna let it cook. Yeah.
Can we talk about minis for a second?
Yeah.
Do you think minis are toys? When Rich wrote in about this, he said miniatures, not a toy factor. In their opinion, it's like they're an embellishment, but they're not something that you're interacting with in the game. They're a replacement for a component to enhance quality. So I'm curious what your thoughts are. On the flip side, like Brock in the Discord was like, look at all my sweet toys, and talked about Marvel Crisis Protocol. So like there's clearly different stances on this.
I feel like I side with the camp that goes miniatures are dolls and dolls are toys. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's dolls for grown-ups, I guess, or something. Or I understand that they don't actually function. They don't serve the same toy function that dolls do, because dolls, you know, as far as I know, come off the shelf pre-built and painted, for lack of a better term. But once the miniature is built and painted, it's essentially a doll. It enhances your imagination so that you can, like your G.I. Joes, you know, are like smacking each other like as a kid, and you're just like,
yeah, I'm kind of with you.
You know, but like it's just become the same thing, but now there's like rules and grid lines and rulers to figure out, you know, how these painted dolls should interact.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think it's a distinction without an actual like defining purpose behind it. The miniatures don't necessarily change anything about the systems and the game state, but they are going to change how you interface with the game itself. They enhance imagination and they allow you to internalize or even like project certain levels of interpretations about what is happening onto the game state, because they're almost like a quality of life improvement for your imagination, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
And that feels like an arbitrary distinction to say like, oh, well, that's not play, or, you know, that's not a toy aspect.
I'm saying all this not to disparage miniatures, by the way. If anything, I'm starting to kind of come around to miniatures. I think I appreciate them more. They've grown on me.
Same.
In a way where I'm like, I kind of want them to be in a game if they can be. For example, we were just talking about Nyakuza. That game has these boat-shaped plastic chips to kind of indicate what you have control of.
Yeah.
I don't know that it would have been a lot better with actual little wooden boats, but I think it would have looked pretty cute.
Yeah, I agree. The thing that changed my viewpoint is actually Agricola. And I think a lot of people can relate to this argument. A lot of minis haters happen to also like Agricola, and I don't think any of those mini haters would disagree that Agricola is significantly enhanced by the fact that it has those small wooden animals over the original printing, which had just wooden cubes. And so that's kind of where you can create that cognitive dissonance with those the Euro fans that hate minis, of which I was a group of, is like, yeah, but you prefer Agricola with the little sheep, right? It's an enhancement, right? It really helps to create something different from what you would have otherwise. There's concerns about pricing and also the actual plastics that are used and things like that. But outside of that, I don't think you can deny that minis enhance games a large number of times.
Well, we recently played like Cthulhu Death May Die, for example, and that game kind of reminded me about the aspects of other games like Imperial Assault, to a similar-ish degree, Eclipse. Like all these games were like those little plastic figurines really, at least for my brain, like elevate the imagination to where I can like actually picture these conflicts almost like a movie in my mind. But I could see, I suppose, like if you don't have, there's like a term for people that can't actually imagine that way, or maybe it's just when they read, they don't see it play out like a movie. But like, I wonder if that's the case in board games. There's like people where it just like, it doesn't do anything in their head.
It doesn't
like
click.
that.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just not as fun, even if it's not like they can't process it. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Is there any game that you are like, I will only play it with upgrades? Or is there any game where you're like, the reason I like it is because of the toy parts?
I think my somewhat immediate obsession with Arnak was due to the funny little plastic resources.
Oh, okay.
In retrospect.
It allowed you to immerse yourself?
Yeah, I think I just enjoyed the tactile sensation of the little arrowheads and the tablets and stuff, like clicking together.
Yeah.
Because Dune, you kept comparing it to fucking Dune Imperium, and then I finally played Dune Imperium, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Dune Imperium is just cubes.
In the base version. In the deluxeified, you get little mini warriors for each of the cubes.
Well, then there you go. I'm only going to play Dune Imperium in the deluxe version from this point forward.
A game that I like because of its toy factor, absolutely Heroescape. I mean, Heroescape is basically Lego's the miniature skirmish game. And a large part of the fun of Heroescape is thinking about what kind of terrain you want to make and then just cooking. I almost feel like it's more fun building the terrain than it is playing the game. But I will say the game is a really solid system too. And I appreciate that the 3D terrain actually has a factor in terms of positioning, in terms of advantages to rolls and things like that. They actually put a lot of effort into making the terrain relevant. It's not just you build a terrain, it could have been anything. You play a game that could have been played on a flat board. Yeah, Heroescape is really the one that comes to mind when we're having this whole conversation.
I don't know that I've ever actually played a real game of Heroescape.
Yeah, we got to do it, including the building. And then a more unconventional one, but this is one where like I kind of find it hard to justify playing it without this anymore, is Eclipse. Because I own the first edition of Eclipse, but I will always choose to play your edition with the game trays and that little like whatever the heck you call that little dial that goes around the outside of the rim, and then the little cubes that go in those little gauges. I know those have like mixed reactions. Like some people are like, I could have appreciated a simpler layout for this, but I really, really like the game trays system for Eclipse Second Edition. And I think it definitely fits in that category of like toy enhancements. Some would argue that's not a toy. For me, that's a toy.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I mean, it's a huge elevation, mostly even just with the ships. In fact, I feel even that I'm missing something because I don't have the little sold separately plastic peg stands for the ships to rest on. Once I get those, I'm going to be playing that game every week.
Yeah.
It's like the ships will be floating above the board. It'll look so sick.
Yeah, I think it really enhances a game like that.
X-Wing is a game where you could technically play it without the ships. Like you could have square placeholders. The ships themselves don't serve any purpose because like the base of the model is how you determine whether or not it's in hitting range and stuff like that. But it's like, come on, what are you fucking doing if you don't have like a little X-Wing flying around and a TIE fighter on the other side and you're like, meow, pew, 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 you know?
Yeah. This should go without saying, but when we're talking about toy factor and games having toy elements, that's different than us saying that games are for kids and games are toys. I think that games serve a lot of purposes, and sometimes they are just for play, but also, I mean, it should be pretty apparent from this podcast that they're an opportunity for critical thought and also an opportunity for investigating systems or thinking about the world or even just appreciating them for their art. So I don't want any of this to be like, games are just toys. We just play with them. You know, that's definitely like, I don't have to go on further about that. I think you and I have been clear in the past. So.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, games are arts. I think they deserve to be revered as such. Designers are artists, and the toys are sort of like a layer through which this medium can be expressed. And it seems like we're in general agreement that like it tends to outperform when done right. But there's definitely like scenarios, and Kickstarter's probably rife with examples of this, where the toys kind of came first and the game was an afterthought, right?
For sure.
But maybe it's not even Kickstarter. It's probably more like Walmart, like Hasbro, like those types of...
It's both, you know, I feel like.
Makes me think of like Don't Break the Ice or like the Cootie Bugs type game. You remember that?
When games prioritize like purchase over play.
Right.
Don't Break the Ice kind of slaps, honestly.
Does it?
Is it deep? No. But is it kind of fun and short? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd rather play that than a roll and move, because I've been getting the whole gamut of kids games lately, and there's definitely tiers.
And so it belongs in which tier?
It's like B tier.
All right.
There's a lot of C tiers and D tiers, that's for sure.
Yep. Well, I think we've run out of ideas that we can drum up for this section of the podcast. So I think I'm going to call it. Kenny, how do you feel about that?
You've released the butt plug, and we've had all that we wanted.
I hate that sentence. Thank you if you're still listening to this. I don't know how you made it this far, but we really appreciate you coming along this ride with us. And I want to say thank you especially to Michael, Tyler, Devon, and Josh of the Boise RainBeaus for your sweet segue music. And thank you to Bonehouse for letting us use your song Rot as our opening theme.
If you're loving the cast, share it with a friend, or on Reddit, or on BGG. You can also reach out to us directly at shelfstablecast@gmail.com. All this and more in the show notes. And if you like what we're doing and you want to make more of it happen, consider subscribing to us on Patreon. You'll get access to our Discord and lots of bonus content. Taylor and I just did a really good Taylor's Takes on the top 100. Tom, you got an idea for next week?
Next week, Kenny, let's talk about free-to-play games and what it means for the industry, what it means for you, listeners, sitting at home.
Bye.